Hi there, and welcome to today's episode where we talk with Sarah Dawkins, who is a passionate holistic health and healing coach. She's a speaker and also the author of Heal Yourself. And we talk about Sarah's journey from being a nurse practitioner and helping people from the traditional medicine perspective, being part of the Western medicine system, to then realizing that medication, pharmaceuticals, and Western medicine is not as all powerful and is not the only choice for us to heal ourselves. And there is so much more. And now Sarah combines her deep understanding of conventional medicine with her own powerful self-healing journey to really create truly integrative approach to her clients. And we talk about all the ways we individually can heal ourselves and what are the signs that maybe we need to dig deeper or look at alternative solutions that maybe the Western medicine is not providing us. So if you are looking to explore a bit more of holistic healing, then this episode is perfect for you. So join us and enjoy this episode with Sarah.
But before we start this conversation, here is your reminder. Hit subscribe because we have some really beautiful guests lined up with some amazing topics and you don't want to miss out. So hit subscribe, hit that notification button so you get reminders of when new episodes go up. So hit subscribe, like, share, notification. But now let's get on with this beautiful, healthy conversation.
Hi, Sarah. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Lenka. Thank you for having me. And hi, Natalie. I'm excited for our conversation.
Same here. Really excited to dive in. So, for us and our listeners, could you please give us a little bit of a context on who you are, what you do, very likely what has brought you onto this path, and we'll see where this journey is going to take us.
Absolutely. I was a registered nurse. One of my colleagues, my nurse colleagues, challenged my beliefs around taking pharmaceuticals at home, which sent me on a journey, which started me looking outside the medical model about what else is available to me, which started me on my own natural healing journey. It was quite mind blowing once I saw my body healing. That led me to a conflict between the life I was leading at home, doing things slightly different than I'd always done with my family, versus going to work and following doctor's orders. That conflict led me into a spiral of depression, suicidal thoughts. But because I'd healed so many health problems up to that point, I knew that I could heal that too. Had no idea what I was going to do. Eventually I did heal that. I stepped away from the hospital, but my identity was tied to Sarah the nurse. And like, who am I if I'm not that? And that again was another internal conflict. But I stepped away, became a nurse entrepreneur, made a lot of money, got awards for the work I was doing, highly recognized, but I was still a nurse and I was still having to sign that register every year to say I abide by the nursing standards. And I'm thinking I can't do this anymore. I really can't. So I trained as a coach, surrendered my nursing license, closed that business down and set up my coaching business. And here I am now helping others to see what I couldn't see for the first 41 years of my life, that there is alternatives to pharmaceutical pills, and to help people to see that actually our bodies do far more than we've ever been told they do, and that we can heal ourselves.
Wow, what a journey. I love the themes that are already emerging from your introduction. But I would love to go, if we can, into a little bit of the past and looking at, what was it that inspired you to want to become a nurse? Why did you choose this path? And what were the signs that started cracking in terms of, started looking for alternatives? And then I would love to be looking at, where do you really see the distinction between where the traditional medical system, the tradition that you trained in and practiced in, really falls short, and how then you balance it with your new beliefs and skills. So, but I always love to understand a little bit more of the background of what was it in nursing that you wanted to go and become a nurse practitioner and wanted to obviously help and heal people? What were the good parts of it, and what were the signs that this is a path or along the path? And then again, let's dive into where the cracks started happening, what were a bit more in depth the realizations that you had onto this exciting new journey that you're on.
So it started as a child. I had this vision of me being a nurse. Now, my mum was a nurse, but I didn't live with my mum. I lived with my sister and my father, and we saw our mum. And whenever we played doctors and nurses, with the other kids, I was always the nurse. And funnily enough, I had a conversation with a lady yesterday, and she was always the doctor, and she became a doctor. And I always I had this caring nature. I cared for people. And I remember at junior school, I think I was maybe 7 or 8, and one of my friends had a fall at home, literally just fell flat down on her bottom. And at school, during break time or recess, as you say in America, she showed me the bruise that she'd got underneath. And I'm like, oh gosh, and I don't remember, but she said, you said, let's go inside now and put some cold water on it and help with, see what we can do with that bruise and see if we can reduce it. And I'm like, I remember seeing the bruise because nobody had ever showed me their undercarriage before. And, but I don't remember saying about the water and whatever. So I'd always had this urge to help people during their vulnerable times. And I think that plus my mum being a nurse led me into nursing. But when I first applied, I didn't have the qualifications because I'd gone to grammar school. I'd got a good brain. I'd passed the 11 plus, gone to grammar school, was in this higher tier of education. But then it combined with the secondary school and just became a high school. Well, there wasn't the discipline to work. So if nobody's telling me and there's no repercussions for not working, like, why am I going to work? And I hated school, absolutely hated it. So I didn't work, so I didn't get the qualifications to get me into nursing. So I had to go back to college. And I went and did the level above what was required as proof to myself. So I'm starting now on a journey of proving my worth. So I went on this journey and got A levels rather than GCSEs. That was the requirement. So got into nursing, and I was 30. I think I was 34 when I went into nursing, and I loved it. It was everything I thought it would be. I'm there, I'm helping people, I'm supporting people, I'm doing the basic stuff. I'm giving them the wash and the care that they're so needing in that hospital setting that they can't do for themselves, but then supporting them to help them to do for themselves. And it was really fulfilling. But the cracks started when we moved to America I qualified in 2001. We moved to America in the end of 2004, got green cards. We wanted to go and try another culture. America, went and passed the NCLEX to do my nursing over there. We moved over there with green cards. But the systems were so alien to me and the autonomy was not there. And it was radically different from what I was used to in the UK. It really challenged me. But I met some lovely people. And one of those nurses, as I said in my intro, challenged my belief about taking pharmaceuticals at home. And I was 41 and I'm like, well, why? Why would she say that? But then what else is there? What do you do if you're not taking pills or going to a doctor or getting a diagnosis? So that started my research. And with a few tweaks to the food I was eating and my lifestyle, within about a month, I'd healed psoriasis, eczema, and acid reflux. So first of all, I'm reading other people healing themselves. And now with a few minor tweaks, my body's healing itself. I'm like, wow, I didn't know this was possible, I was so naive, but then I was raised in that medical model. Nobody had ever said, you know what, outside of what you're seeing here is all of this. So that's where the cracks started, because Following on from that, I went on to heal chronic pain, bulimia nervosa, PTSD, underactive thyroid, burnt out adrenal glands, and then the depression with the suicidal thoughts. So I went on quite a journey, but it was over a period of years. And that made me so conflicted, because I knew that actually we can heal ourselves. And even from like ALS and cancer and multiple sclerosis and autoimmune, our bodies heal. And I've got people in my book sharing their journey healing all of that. So I know it's possible. I was never taught this growing up. I was never taught this in nursing school. And I'm like, so there must be other people out there who, like me, have no idea what's possible for them. And that was life-changing.
I can definitely see how that is life-changing, because it's something that we've experienced here on the podcast. It's very similar to our journeys from embracing more of the mind, body, full holistic healing approaches beyond the traditional. But what I'm incredibly intrigued by is you have this ability, you have this experience of bringing the Western European UK kind of like, it's similar-ish across the Europe, but it's very different in the US. And I've noticed that it seems like in the US you had the experience of then the alternatives and holistics. And I would love your insight on, is US, because we know, most of us know that US has lots of issues with its healthcare system, that it is, compared to most of the European systems, quite not as efficient and not, supporting people in so many ways. But I also feel that because US is so big and there's so many people, so many cultures, that there is more chances to meet people who are alternative and open-minded versus maybe in the UK or in Europe, because we're still, our systems work and we fully believe in the scientific method, and we don't have to look for alternatives because the medical system worked, air quotes. So I would be curious to kind of just get your perspective on, do you think it was, obviously there's a chance of meeting the person, but do you think you would have a similar chance of meeting someone like that, more likely, less likely, in the UK? And how do you see this balance between traditional medicine with pharmaceuticals versus an alternative medicine across the pond? And obviously you have experience with different cultures now.
I'd like to firstly say that Western medicine has a place in trauma, accidents, and emergencies. Absolutely has a place, and we need it for those issues. But for everything else, we can heal ourselves, because our body doesn't just throw out, say, like multiple sclerosis or ME or fibromyalgia. It starts giving us tiny little symptoms like a headache or an upset tummy or a rash or a fatigue, a tiredness. And we don't listen to those. We'll take a pill and quieten those symptoms and then continue. So our body will throw out a bit more severe symptoms. It might become a migraine. It might become irritable bowel. And then we don't listen to it. So our body will then start screaming at us. And that's when we get these big diagnoses, in air quotes. So we need to first and foremost come back in and listen to our body, to listen to those little whispers that something's not right. So just wanted to point that out. But actually, I found in the UK, there was more people open-minded to alternative than in America. When I was in America, I started my healing journey in 2005, and we left in 2006. So we were only there for 2 years. And in that time, I remember asking people about a chiropractor, and the horror on their face. Oh no, don't touch them, don't touch them. They might break your back. And I'm like, oh, okay. And asking people for recommendations for holistic practitioners came up with mainly a blank. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't touch them. And also, I found in the American system that people are going for annual blood tests, annual checkups, annual mammograms, annual pap smears, annual, all these other tests. And I'm like, be careful what you look for, because you might find it, because your attention is going where, sorry, your energy is going where your attention's flowing, and the universe doesn't understand not. So, if you're going, I don't want cancer, the universe is going, oh, I want cancer, right? So let's go and have a test and find it. And to me, that's quite shocking because I haven't been to a doctor in about 20 years. I don't do all that annual stuff. And in the UK, they do something similar, but like their mammograms, I think I don't know, are they every 5 years? And the pap smears are every 3 years until you get to a certain age and it becomes 5 years. So there's similarities, but the time differences are different. But as I say, in the UK, I've found a lot more chiropractors, reflexology, acupuncture, different, what we call alternative practitioners, which is actually ancient wisdom. It was there long before the Rockefeller medicine that we see today in the world. So from what I've witnessed, my own opinion is that it's more readily accessible and more people are open-minded to it in the UK than America. That said, I left America in 2006. So I only see what I see online in some of the groups that I'm in. And I get kickback when I start mentioning that we don't need pills, we don't need HRT, we don't need procedures, we don't need Botox. There's alternative ways. There's a lot of people in those groups are still bought into that. This is what we need. And that's their journey, that's okay. But I'm planting seeds for people who might want to step away from that and look at what else is available.
This is a conversation that is right up my street. I grew up on homeopathic medicine. I always knew that the alternative, but like you said, ancient wisdom, because actually modern medicine is alternative. So, but the thing is, I grew up on that, and I grew up in South Africa, and it was very much, you went to see, you had your doctor pretty much for life. You stayed at the same doctor, regardless of where you moved. You just had the same doctor. You, you know, going to a homeopath, going to find a chiropractor, going was just done. It's just what people did. And then I went to the UK, and I've had the opposite experience to you. I found them very closed off. It was like, no. And it took me a long time to find a homeopath that I was, well, to find a homeopath, and then one that luckily I was really happy with her, and I had her for a good few years. But I found that it's, why do we need that? We've got the NHS. Why would I look, why would I pay for something? I've got the NHS, it's for free. This was the idea. And I had an experience with the white coats, as I call them, and they just wouldn't listen to me. And I knew that there was something wrong, and they wouldn't listen to me. And I ended up in A&E pretty much on death's door because they wouldn't listen to me, but they wanted me to go for all sorts of other tests. And I remember one of the doctors saying, "What do you know? I'm the doctor." And I'm like, "Heh, actually, I know more than you know because I'm in my own body." And of course, I became a problem patient because I argued. And so, but I left the UK in November last year. So I've only been back in South Africa for 4 months, 3 months. And I've lived there for 25 years. And I did start to see after, so pre-2020, people asking questions more, people thinking, hang on a minute, there's got to be more. So I definitely saw a shift. But pre-2020, I was the weirdo. I was very much, why would you want to do that? But afterwards, I did start to feel, hang on a minute, people are starting to realize we can heal our bodies. We do know what's going on in our bodies. Actually, we know more than the doctors because we're living in it. We know what's happening when we wake up, or if we're not sleeping, what things feel like inside of us. And I'm loving that this is becoming so much more open and so much more, let's talk about it. And I really, I get, or I'm trying, I think I can understand when you say that conflict of interest, almost this dissonance that you were living in, because you were taking the healthy medicine, but going to work and doing what the doctor says, and not and knowing that there's most probably not a good connection there, or that they can do something else. And it's quite something when you're living in that dissonance, when you're living in, just that turmoil almost. And I'm really glad that you've managed to step away and find a way to help people, because there are still people out there who like, no, the GPs know best. And I had that the other day, a friend of mine, she's ill, and I know she can be healed really quickly and really simply. And I said, I know somebody here where I am who can, oh, no, 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 no. I go to doctors because they know what they're doing. And I'm thinking, she's already saying they're putting on antidepressants for her gut. So the thing is, we need more people to realize the power that we have in our bodies. And I love that you are out there showing them and teaching and guiding them. And you come from a really great background because you've been there. I'm just spouting off stuff that I grew up with, but you've actually been in the system, seen how it works, stepped out of it, and realized there's so much more, not just that little bit. So I really, this conversation is is sort of one of my soapboxes that I do like to stand on. But before we were talking, you said that you're living in Spain. I'd love to know, now you've done England, you've done America. Now, on this journey, how are the Spanish, the Europeans? I know Lenka is, from the Czech Republic, and she's come from a very different direction, but you actually in it. How do you find the Europeans compared to sort of England and America? And I appreciate America was in the early 2000s, but I'm sure you're seeing some differences or some, hopefully, more alignments.
I'd like to say yes. But I mean, I don't visit the doctor or the pharmacy, but I see people coming out with carrier bags full of medicines from the pharmacy. And I've got some Spanish friends, and they've confirmed that the Spanish really are still in that medical model and trust the doctors and take the pills. And at the end of the day, it's easy to do that. It's easy to offload your responsibility to a doctor, get a diagnosis and take a pill for it and do nothing else. So you continue the life that you were living and just take pills for whatever your symptoms are. And I get that because, I lived that for the first 41 years of my life. I changed nothing and just lived with the creams and the pills and the whatever. So it's easy to do that. I'd like to say that, I hope moving forwards that minds will change, but you know what? I don't know what I can do. I've got some language. I've spoken to some people. I've planted seeds. I spoke to a Dutch lady a couple of days ago about fat and cholesterol, and they've just thrown all their sunflower oil out. Yay, big win. Today I've sent her some information about statins and how they cause brain problems, poor brain health. And so hopefully I've planted another seed there, and they're going to look at stopping those. But it's just, I can only plant seeds where I can plant seeds, and I do. I'm on a bit of a soapbox as well because I want to help people to help themselves. Once they understand what they're doing to their mind, body, and soul through their diet and lifestyle, they can make those small tweaks and massively improve their health and quality of life.
And as you said, it's small tweaks. You're not changing anything drastic, but it is easy. It's easy to go to the doctor, get a script, go to the pharmacy, pick it up, take the pill, and then get on with it. But unfortunately, and so many people have actually said this to me, but it doesn't seem to be a conscious thing, is I take so many pills because there's so many side effects from my pills. And I'm like, Yes. Have you thought about, look, no, I just go back to the doctor and I get for the other side effects. So people are, I use the word aware very lightly, but people are aware that there's sometimes this knock-on effect from the pill that they're taking, and therefore they're taking a handful of pills for one thing because of all the side effects. So they might be aware of it, but I don't think they really are aware of it and conscious of actually, if I did this and this and this, I can get rid of that handful of pills and live a healthier life and maybe live longer and maybe have a more productive life, because we have one body. This is the body that we have for the rest of our lives. We want to be as active as possible. My mother, she's 81 years old and she is all over. I mean, she's got more energy than I have. She's all over the place. And she says so many people come up to her and, in walking sticks, in wheelchairs, shuffling along, and they go, "Oh, it'd be so nice to be as young as you again." And she says, "Well, how old are you?" And they say, "Well, I'm 75 or I'm 72." And she says, "I'm 81. I'm 81." So, and she's never been on pharmaceutical stuff. She does, it's all homeopathic, it's all, looking to change things that you need to change. And I sometimes think, yes, when I get to her age, I still want to be driving. I still want to be doing puzzles and working out things and driving people up the wall who are near me. But she's so active. But the majority of 70-year-olds and 80-year-olds that I have come across in my life are not. And I think we have this one body. Why not be active in your 80s? Be active in your 90s. My aunt is 91 and she still catches trains and all sorts. So the thing is it is what you put in your body is what comes out, I guess, and we can really heal. So keep planting those seeds, keep sharing it, because that's the only thing we can do. Is we can't make people change, but I think if they hear it enough and start to see it in others, that will make a change. But I am really hopeful that even though it seems like nothing's happened, I really do think that more and more people are starting to question, starting to look, can I do this instead of this? Can I find somewhere else? What food am I eating? What am I looking at? And I really think that people like you you've written a book. I'm assuming those are your books that I can see in the background. You've written a book. You said you've got a podcast. Keep sharing it. Keep planting those seeds, because people do need people like us out there. Just keep on at them, be like one of those, just keep poking that bear. Hopefully something will happen.
And I live it as well. I live the life that I want to live, and I'm incredibly active. I was 61 and at the end of last year. I eat well. I'm very active. I have no joint pains, no health problems whatsoever. And I look at other people and they've got pain or bowel problems or joint problems, and I'm like, there's a lot of emotion trapped in your body, plus the foods that you're eating, the seed oils and the sugars and the alcohol. And it's just about being aware of how not just our lifestyle and our diet, but how our mind and our beliefs play into it. Because I believe I'm going to live past 100 and be a sprightly old lady. And I'm holding myself to that belief. There's no reason why I shouldn't be. I don't put my life in the number of years that this earth has orbited the sun. That means nothing to me. My life is about getting up, being the best person I can be, having the best life I can, making the most of every opportunity, being in the here and now and living my life fully, not, I expect to get arthritis and I expect to get joint problems and I expect to get bowel problems. No, I don't expect any of that just because the Earth's orbited the sun a set number of years. No, I'm just going to live life.
I love that. I think we're on the same wavelength in terms of, I always say that, my vision in life is to live. I say 93, that's my goal. And in my 90s, still be hiking and active and do all sorts of adventure stuff. Usually expecting to do it with my girl pals because the men's, I don't know, they're gonna sit and watch football or anything. But I think this is a wonderful mindset to have. And I'm curious, I'm now thinking about two types of people who may be listening to our podcast. One of them will be the ones who are currently suffering with a problem. They will have pain, they will have health challenges, and they will be possibly desperately seeking any options. They've probably tried the pharmaceuticals, they've tried the traditional medicine, and they're now looking to take a bit more ownership and figure shit out for themselves because the doctors were not helpful or there's so many side effects, it's not working. But also, we might have then a group of listeners who are more on the prevention stage, where nothing is seriously wrong, thank you, but they are aware that, their lifestyle might not be the healthiest, the best. They're looking for ways of preventing any illnesses and diseases and challenges. So, with these two different types of people in mind, where can people start this journey of this? If they're starting by listening to this podcast, but what it is that they can start doing in their daily lives, what they can look at in their daily habits to start unpacking what it is that is causing the root problems of their suffering, or what it is that could possibly be causing the root problems of suffering in future.
Of all the clients I've had and the people that I speak to, the vast majority of health problems come from unresolved trauma in our past. Now, let me quantify that, because there's trauma with a capital T, which is what we tend to go to in our minds. It's the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, and the mental abuse. But there's also trauma with a little t. And that could be maybe you were hurt and needed a hug from a parent and didn't get one. Or the school teacher put you to the back of the queue and put somebody else in front of you. Or you put your hand up in class and you were told to put it down, or you were made fun of, or you were teased. All of these cause trauma with a little t, because as that young child, we didn't know how to process that logically and rationally. We didn't have those skills and knowledge. So we held that as, there's something wrong with me. I'm not worthy. I'm too much. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I can't be loved. And however we processed that, we held that inside of us as a little t trauma. And unless we've actually revisited it and worked through what happened and looked at who was involved with the eyes of the adult that we are now, because that whole situation, or those whole situations, are held in the eyes of the child. And every time we go back, we see it through the eyes of the child that we were. So if we can see it now from, as an observer, looking at it from the outside with the logic, the skills and the knowledge that we've got now, and process it, well, it wasn't done to hurt us. It was they didn't know that they would be hurting us. They didn't know the trauma it would cause. They didn't realize how we would perceive that and hold that for the rest of our lives. So if we can understand that we all do what we do at the time with the skills and the knowledge that we've got, and maybe the people who said or did whatever it was didn't have the skills and knowledge or the emotional intelligence to do anything different, and how it landed in us caused us to hold on to that as emotional trauma, a little t trauma. So if we can work through that and understand they didn't have the knowledge and skills, they probably didn't mean to harm us, but we took it as that because of the age that we were. If we can do a lot of that, first of all, we have to acknowledge that, the past. And then we have to come to a place of acceptance, because it's happened. We can't change it. So we have to accept what's happened. But we can reframe it now because we're adults. We've got logic and reason and knowledge and skills. So we can look back and say, well, they probably didn't understand how it would land. They probably didn't have the knowledge and skills, and they probably didn't mean to hurt us. But as that child, that's how it landed with us. And if we can look at what we've learned from it, yes, we all build some really unhealthy survival skills, some coping mechanisms. But as the adult, when we become self-aware, we can see those coping skills and survival skills that we built to get us to where we are now. And they're not wrong. I want to really emphasize that they're not wrong. We did that to survive the life that we were living based on what happened to us. But as I say, once we become self-aware, we can reframe those situations and look at them differently. And I was talking to a client last night who is suffering with narcissistic abuse. She's 22 and she's incredibly emotionally intelligent. And I said, you've got that because of what you've been through. So yes, you can see all the negative things that's happened, but look at the emotional intelligence it's given you. You are more wise than any of your friends because they haven't been through that. They don't understand. So when we reframe that and look at the skills and knowledge that we've gained from it and how it's affected our lives and the wisdom within it, we can use that and take that forwards rather than sitting in that victim. And I've been there and sat in that for a long time, but we have to sit in it to feel it. We just shouldn't live there. So sit in it, feel what happened to you, understand that, acknowledge and accept it's happened. We can't change it, but we can change the way we view it. And then pick out the skills that we've learned from what's happened to us and use that as wisdom to move us forwards.
That's so true about, going to the past and living in the past. I mean, Gabor Mate I think Lenka and I have both read his books and we absolutely love what he says. And it is all about the trauma. But as you said, you sort of think about trauma with a capital T. And this is something that I've recently, or last couple of years, been realizing that I've had quite a lot of trauma in my life, but none of the capital T ones. And therefore I thought that there was something wrong with me because I didn't have any trauma, but why am I feeling like all this? And so realizing, okay, these are things that have happened, but they're not those big, like you said, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, the real abuse that some children get. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't impact you. And this is something that Gabor Mate was saying. It doesn't have to be those big traumas. It could just be your mother's tired one day and she just shouts at you because she's worked a full day. You must probably being a brat, or you just there, but you hang on to that like my life is over. So I love how you say, is taking the knowledge and the skills and the logic that we've got now, going back there and having a look and seeing and almost stepping away from it and looking at it and then healing from there. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways one can do that, the inner child work and going to talking to people and having counseling or reading, or there are lots of different ways of doing that. So now if our listeners are, they're on this track and they're thinking, okay, but what can they do now, like physically, because going through the past and dealing with it, it's not like, okay, I'm going to sit down for an hour, going to get through it, I'm done, next. It's a process that you go through that can take time, and that can be quite a roller coaster ride while you're doing it. So what can people start to do more on the physical level, the more practical levels while they're going through this and dealing with it? Because you can almost do the two simultaneously. You don't have to have one and then do the other. So what would your sort of suggestions be on starting this step, or maybe carrying on with where somebody's at? I mean, like Lenka say, yes, start by listening to this episode and reading, but some practical tips that people can take away that, okay, I think I can do this, or I'm going to do this, or yeah, I'm on it. And just having those sort of things to do.
So I've defined 4 pillars of health and healing, and people can pick out what they want from any of those pillars. And really, because we're a holistic being, everything's connected to everything else. You can't separate it out. The same with the pillars, everything that knocks onto everything else. So there's the physical, which is your nutrition, hydration, sleep, and exercise. A little tweak in any of those, cut out fast foods, convenience foods, seed oils, sugar, alcohol. Start by making nutritional improvements. I don't like the word diet because it contains the word die. I prefer the word health because it contains the word heal. So you can, start with one little thing in that, whether it's the nutrition or move your body more. We talk about exercise, but exercise is just movement. Get up every hour, dance around when you're vacuuming the garden, the house, go and dig the garden, plant some seeds, do a bit of weeding. Drink a bit more fluid, look at your urine. Is it dark, mid or dark yellow? And if it is, you're dehydrated, you need to drink some more fluid. Be aware of what you're drinking. Is it from a bottle? Has it got ingredients? Is it more than one ingredient? Then look at the ingredients, and chances are it's not got some good ingredients. And sleep, prioritize good quality sleep. Go to bed at the same time, try and get up at the same time. Don't look at your electronic devices 2 hours before you go to bed. Any of those in that physical pillar. The mental pillar is about practicing gratitude, being mindful, doing some meditation. So practicing gratitude, it's not just words, it's a feeling, it's a deep-seated feeling. I'm really grateful that I've got a roof over my head, somewhere to sleep, a car to drive, some money in the bank, some friends that talk to me, anything that you can have gratitude for. It's the little things that really matter. The mindfulness is just slowing down and stopping and being present in the moment. Just take a moment and feel whatever's underneath you. Feel into the temperature of the room around you. Listen into what you can hear. Just do it for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long period of time. Just whatever time allows, just slow right down and be in that moment. And meditation doesn't have to be sitting on the floor cross-legged with your thumb and finger together going om. It can be walking in nature. It can be just those quiet moments, sat with a coffee, just being in that moment. Mindfulness, meditation is whatever you make it. In the spiritual pillar, it's just about coming back to that little voice inside of us, whatever name you give it. There's all sorts of names, but it's that reconnecting to that inner voice. But it's also about the community that you're with. Do they lift you up? Do they drain you? Can you put the ones that drain you at arm's length and make more friends with people that lift you up? And are you being true to yourself? Are you truly authentically you, or have you layered on all these masks to fit in, to be liked, which is a trauma response? And then the emotional pillar, as I say, the looking back at the past and healing your past in whatever way you can. And also doing more things that light you up, being aware of how life affects you, being aware of what triggers you, because your triggers are healing, coming, past events coming up for healing. And just pick anything out of all that and just do a little bit of something that you want to do. Don't feel obligated. Pick something that you want to do as a choice. And any of that, the minute you start doing little bits of any of it, your health and your life will improve. You don't have to do all of it all at once, but it's all there waiting for you.
And I love that you mentioned choice, because I think it's such a powerful healing modality almost, is embracing the fact and acknowledging the fact and really realizing that so much is within our control, that we can heal ourselves, and we have so much power, and it comes from a choice that it then leads into all of these things we could be doing. It comes into how are we thinking And I know that on your Instagram, you have shared a wonderful quote that I love as well, that says, "You're only a thought away from changing your life." And again, it comes back to the circle of it's within our powers. We do not need to rely on anyone else. And I always say, I wish we were taught as we were growing up to trust ourselves more. That we're always taught, listen to your parents and listen to your elderly, listen to the experts. And even on this podcast, I will always remind people it's wonderful. We're learning from incredible people. At the end of the day, Natalie's example, your stories, trust yourself, listen to yourself, and you have a choice. So I am so grateful for all your insights and reminding us and reminding our listeners that it is within our powers, that we have the choice. But this is a hard concept for some people to accept, that it comes possibly with a blame to themselves. We're like, well, if I always had the choice, how come I haven't done it? Or I've accepted a choice and I still haven't changed. So can we unpack a little bit this powerful ability of having a choice, but also the way that comes with it, and how can people overcome the fear from, well, if I choose and it's still not working, that there's nothing else left for me, there's no other option.
Just before I go into that, I want to share a quote that I hear Peter Crone say often. And he says, if the past could have been different, it would have been. And that comes back to choices. Everybody makes choices, and the past is whatever it was because of the choices that everybody made to bring that together. And it is about it's a choice about stepping out into the unknown, into the uncomfortable, and out of our comfort zone. Because I mean, take the depression I had, for example. My comfort zone had shrank down to nothing because I thought I was just so worthless. I'm spoiling people's lives. I just need to take myself away from this, out of it, and everybody will be much happier. They don't have to look at me being miserable and crying all the time. And during my healing, I chose to take the incredibly uncomfortable step out of that teeny tiny comfort zone that I'd shrank down to. And when I set up my business, a friend said, let's go and do some networking and I'll pick you up and I'll take you. And I'm like, oh my God. I was so scared. But I'm like, if I'm running a business, I need to be able to network. And we walked in and I am shaking visibly. I'm feeling it on the inside. I'm seeing it on the outside because I was so anxious. But I made the choice to step out of that comfort zone. And the only way I could regrow that comfort zone was to keep making those choices to step into the unknown and the uncomfortable. But the beauty is the more that we do that, the more courage and confidence we build within ourselves. And that choice becomes easier. And we're choosing it to move our lives forward because we've got to a point where we can't tolerate where we're at anymore. Our mind's gone, something's got to change. I'm like, yeah, but it's going to be really uncomfortable and I'm really not going to like it. But then the other part's going, but yeah, you're stepping into your future, you're stepping into the unknown, and magic can happen in the unknown and miracles can unfold in the unknown. But we're going, yeah, but I don't know. What if it all goes wrong? And it really is that double-edged sword. You've got your self-sabotage going, what if it all goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I just fall up the stage and trip up and somebody laughs at me? And we just go out there into ridiculous scenarios because we don't want to embarrass ourselves. We don't want to feel foolish. But actually, that's part of living and growing. It's how we respond to if we trip up or if we say something or get stuck and stumble with our words. It's just how we respond. Just a minute. Let me just compose myself and come back. So that choice is always there. And the other part of that is nobody can do it for you. People can support you and help you to move forwards in your life, but nobody can do it for you. My friend didn't literally drag me out of the house and put me in a car and handcuff me into the seat and literally take me with a gun into the networking event. We did it together. And then she went off and talked to people. I'm like, oh, I'm all alone. It's like, and it was so scary, but I did it. So the second time, it was still anxiety provoking, but not as much as the first time because I'd already done it once. I knew what to expect. So the more that we can keep choosing our life and what we want to do and choosing our future, a future that we want to step into that's different from where we are now, the better our life is. And sometimes those choices are between a rock and a hard place. They're not always easy choices to make, but we've always got a choice. And what will be, will be. But no, it will be what it will be, but it will become what we make it. And I love that, because when we throw our emotions onto it and make it highly emotive and we're self-sabotaging, it's definitely become what we're making it. But if we can let go of that and just go with the flow and expect miracles, because when we expect miracles, we see them. People have it back to front and they say they have to see a miracle to believe in miracles. No, we have to just expect miracles and then we'll see them. So that's my take on choice.
I love it. And it reminds me a few of the metaphors that often keep coming back when we have this conversation. And you kind of touched on it, that the universe doesn't understand the negatives, that you say, don't do this, don't do this. And all here is like the thing that you say, it doesn't hear the negative. And I always remember, I think it was professional skiing, like cross country, where you're really going very quickly, zigzagging between trees or whatever, or cycling, off road. You don't think, don't hit a tree, don't hit a tree, don't hit a tree. You're looking, look for a path. Where is the path? Look for the empty spots. So you're looking for what you want. And we know that kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy, that that's where manifestation and visualization and affirmations kind of come in place, because we know that if we ever dream of, oh, I want a red car, all you see are red cars. And I know it from my experience of the moment I embraced van life and living in a van, you realize how many other motorhomes and vans are out there that I've been completely blind to for most of my life, not realizing. So I think it again touches on so many of the wonderful topics we have covered on this podcast and our listeners may have heard about. And I love that we are reinforcing them with different perspectives and different takes on, because it again helps us to, sometimes we need to hear things multiple times from different angles for them to really click and really sink in. So I'm loving the fact that I can recognize some of the themes and some of the patterns that we have covered on the podcast, but it's different and it's uniquely you, and it's really a good reminder for our listeners. So thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Absolutely. And thank you.
I just wanted to, one thing that, when you were talking about choice, is you also can choose not to do anything. That's also a choice. Because quite often people say, but I don't have a choice. Yeah, but you're choosing not to do anything. So that is also a choice, is you can think you don't have a choice and not do anything. And that is a choice. So, but I love how you explained the choice and everything else. It's we do have a choice. We have freedom and free will, which gives us choice. I love that.
Absolutely. And along with that same vein, I want to say that, if somebody asks something of you, you can say no, and you don't have to explain yourself, because no is a whole sentence. So don't step into, well, I've got to explain why I've said no. No, you don't. If you don't want to do something, you could say no. And it's self-preservation. It's self-love.
That is true. And when you say no to somebody else, you're saying yes to yourself. So this is the, and I know you've given us so much, but this is what we call the gold nugget. This is where we ask, Sarah, may we please have your gold nugget?
Absolutely. I would say, look at your perception of stress, because we feel stress in our bodies. And quite often, for the majority of the time, the stress is actually external out there. We're trying to be responsible for something, somebody. We're trying to control something, somebody. And actually, we have no responsibility or control over it. We are only responsible for ourselves, and we can only control ourselves. Anything else is not ours. I mean, even our children are our responsibility, but we can't always control them because they've got their own minds. So look at what causes you stress, and is it really within your control or responsibility? Can you deal with whatever's going on? Or is it something else, somebody else, something that's happening external to you that you really can't control? And when we start to reframe what's going on in our mind and understand what we're responsible for, which is just ourselves, it helps us to let go of trying to control that external, which in return helps us to reduce the stress that we're feeling, because it's about the perception we've got about how we can control and be responsible for external stuff. And stress is a massive killer. And stress causes a multitude of health problems. So if the one thing you can do in your life to help you on your own healing journey is to look at the stress that you're feeling, perceiving, and ask yourself, is it yours to control, and are you responsible for it? And learn to come back to yourself. You can control yourself, you're responsible for yourself. And try and be more in the flow and just allow whatever's going on to go on. And I know it sounds simplistic, but it's a massive stress reduction if you can do that. And in reducing your stress, as I say, it only improves your health and your quality of life.
Another beautiful gold nugget. Thank you so much. And this is why we love our gold nuggets. We always get something valuable and glittery and gold. So thank you so much for that. Now, for our listeners, if they're thinking, you know what, this is something I need to make a change, or I want to learn more about you, or find out more about your book, or just want to connect with you, or pick your brain, or have one of those seeds that you keep planting, or just want some help to making shifts in their lives, where can people find you?
If you go straight to my website, all my contact details are on there, and it's www.sarahdawkins.com.
Simple as that, but also for our listeners, the links will be listed down below. Sarah's website, some of the social media links to her book, so you can easily find it down in the description below. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. We love this conversation, and we could go on for forever, and we have more and more questions we would love to ask you, and I know our listeners might have more questions they would like to ask you. But I always try to squeeze in one last question in the end that's maybe more personal, more about you, more about where you are right now in your life. And this podcast is all about exploring different ways of having happier, healthier, more fulfilling lives. It's all about leaning into the life. So I'm always curious what gives you life right now, what it is that gives you the sense of leaning into life.
For me personally, it's working with clients and seeing them improve their health, their lifestyle, heal the problems that they've got in their health and in their life. It's so humbling to see these people do the work necessary, and I'm just a guide. I just help them to see what's causing their problems, and they do all the work. And that really lights me up, seeing people take that responsibility and run with it, rather than going to a doctor and taking a pill and doing nothing and changing nothing.
Thank you. And yes, it is. It is about being a guide. It is. And we need more people like you being guides, and just keep planting those seeds, keep sharing your knowledge, sharing your experience, because it does. I think it was Jim Rohn, I think his name was, is you can throw seeds and some seeds go on pavements, but some seeds go into the soil, but you never know which seed is going where. So you just keep planting. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time, for your energy today, for sharing your wisdom with us and your stories. We really appreciate you being with us today and having this conversation.
Absolutely. And thank you to you both for having me on your show and allowing me to share my wisdom and what I've learned with your audience.
And for our listeners, what have you got from today? Is this a journey that you are miles down the road and you've had some wonderful experiences? Or is this you've been thinking about it and you've been wondering, is there more out there? Is there something more that you can do for yourself? Or is this the first time you're hearing it and thinking, wow, I didn't know that? We would love to know what has been your aha moments, what has helped you, and how has your health journey been? Is this something that you are passionate about and looking for or wanting to learn more? We would love to know. So share with us in the comments. We would love to hear. But until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.